Mic check, 1, 2, 3. So cold. Hello lovely people. Today we will be talking about the ultimate Tweeter Shootout. So this video is not going to be the result. I'm not going to show you any measurements. I just want you to be aware that this thing is happening because probably a lot of people don't know. And in this video, I'm going to cover basically why I decided to do this, all the theory stuff, how the measurement is going to be performed, what I'm going to be measuring, and what tweeters we will include in the shootout. And most importantly, why this shootout is happening like in general. It's very cold. It's very cold today. So, last year, some of you might know, the newer ones probably will not know, that I did perform an ultimate mid-range shootout where I had, I think, close to 30 3-inch, 3.5-inch, and some 4-inch mid-ranges. And I compared them under identical conditions just to see how they perform and is there any big, massive differences. And I wanted to do the same for the tweeters. A lot of people asked, to be honest, as well, and I want to do it as well because I just want to see, is there a big difference between a tweeter that costs, I don't know, 20, 30 pounds and the one that costs 200 or 300 pounds? And is it worth paying extra? And if it is worth, what extra are you getting for your money? So the whole purpose of this Tweeter Shootout is to compare very different drivers under identical conditions. So the whole purpose and the whole idea for this shootout is to... We had a discussion about this because people were talking about clipple measurements, that some companies do provide clipple measurements for their drivers and you cannot have more accurate measurements than those. Yes, I 100% agree. However, if you want to compare clipple measurement of one tweeter, you need to have clipple measurement of the other tweeter. Most of the time, that is not the case. You don't have it. Most of the time, if you're lucky, you're going to have a frequency response. No distortion, no nothing. So the purpose of these measurements and this shootout is to compare the tweeters under identical conditions. That means using the same amplifier, same DSP, same source, same measure microphone, same baffle, same room, ideally everything measured on the same day under the same temperature, same humidity. All the measurement conditions are exactly the same between all the tweeters. So if there is going to be any possible influence of anything, that influence is going to be exactly the same for all the tweeters being measured. However, I think I made sure to eliminate 99.9% of the variables that could influence the data that is being presented. So this shootout is going to be one of a kind where we're going to literally compare all the tweeters under identical conditions. Even if my measurements are not 100% exactly the same as with clipple or as if you would have in a dedicated laboratory with, I don't know, £1,000 costing measuring microphone or an interface, I think these measurements are going to be valid and they're going to serve the purpose of comparison. Now, one misconception is going to be that people are going to think that this shootout is going to show us the best overall tweet, like the winner of them all, which I want to highlight that is not going to be the case. The purpose of this shootout is just to compare the tweeters, not to crown a king, because there will not be, I guarantee there will not be such a thing, such a tweeter that performs perfect and ideal in all the aspects that we are interested in. So for example, if you need a tweeter that would play very, very low, so for you, the primary spec of a tweeter is going to be low distortion at low frequencies. And if you have another person that does not need it, it's not going to be the best tweeter for him. Same goes for the distortion. Some people want low distortion because they want a transparent transparent tweeter that will reproduce the sound as it comes from the amplifier. However, some will look for some coloring or coloration in the sound because they like that and they enjoy that. So for them, they will need totally different tweeters. Same goes for installation. If you have a tweeter that performs perfectly, low distortion, very good frequency response, and it does things very good. However, it is a big format tweeter and you literally physically cannot fit it. It's literally pointless and useless for you. So you need a small tweeter. And if you have a very, very small tweeter in a small form factor, it will probably have some compromises. So I just want to make a point that there are different tweeters for different purposes and different needs for different systems. You cannot have one single tweeter that will be perfect for everything. So for this, I want to thank you, all of my followers, because I made a post probably more than a month ago that you can send anything you want to me. I will test it and I will send it back. I sent, I do believe, 38 emails to companies, big brands, all the car audio companies that you would know, from the most known like, I don't know, Alpine, Pioneer, JL, Kicker, all of those, and as well to the smaller companies like Micro Precision, Accuton. Well, Accuton is big, but like all the boutique brands as well. Out of those 38 emails that I've sent, I think I got probably 5 replies, out of which I think 2 or 3 only decided to send some stuff, and the other replies were just, sorry, we don't do this, we cannot do this, or some other stuff. And this is totally understandable. We had a debate online on one of my posts. Some people say that companies that don't send drivers for me to test, they are scared, they're like this, they're that. It's absolutely not the case. I 100% support a company's decision not to send anything, because they're not obligated to send me anything. They don't have to, because I'm literally nothing. I have less than 20k subscribers on YouTube, and my platform is just mainly aimed for budget hobbyists. So to expect that a company such as Accuton is gonna send me anything, or like, I don't know, Morel or whatever, it's kind of ludicrous, I want to say, because why would they? They have absolutely no need to do that. However, there were some companies that jumped on the bandwagon straight away without waiting anything. Literally half an hour after I posted that, Nick from Stereo Integrity texted me straight away. I want to send something. Give me your address. I got a reply from Audiotech Fisher, because, I don't know, they kind of like what I do and I like the company as well. So I have one of their tweeters. Then I had Recoil reached out to me with 4 of their own tweeters. I had Midbase UK reached out with a lot of Vibe and Edge stuff, which is going to be very interesting to compare and see. Even if it is a British company, they do sell stuff overseas as well. They have a distributor in America. They do sell stuff in, I think, Australian stuff. It's just, they sell all over the place. But the main contributors to this shootout were the actual subscribers and individuals, the actual people that watch my content. They send the most stuff to me. There were cases that somebody bought a pair of brand new tweeters for themselves. However, they shipped it directly to my address, and after the shootout, they're gonna get those tweeters to themselves. I think I can mention that one guy bought Stevens Audio tweeters, SA1s, and he put my address, and since the shipping was from the US, Mr. Stevens, he just shipped the tweeters for free. So the guy paid for the tweeters, the company paid for the shipping, and then I'm going to send the tweeters back to the guy when everything will be done. However, with all of this, the most frustrating part are the other people that, I don't know, either they didn't realize that this is happening, or they don't follow me, or like, I don't know, because a lot of people comment under my post with just random, most expensive tweeters asking why are they not included. Why don't you have a Piccolo? Why don't you have a Brax tweeter? Why don't you have Focal Beryllium? Like, because you didn't send them to me? It's very easy to sit on the other side of the screen and comment the most expensive tweeters, expecting, I don't know, me to buy them, I would imagine. Like this shootout that I'm doing, I'm trying not to invest absolutely anything, and it was one of the conditions for the companies and the people that send me the tweeters that you have to pay for shipping both ways. You have to pay for any fees that are because of import tax or customs or that kind of stuff, because the mid-range shootout that I did last year, it cost me more than I gained from YouTube. All the YouTube views combined, all the ad revenue that I got from the shootout, it didn't cover the plywood that I bought because YouTube literally doesn't pay anything. So this Tweeter Shootout is the same principle. If you want anything tested, basically you're paying for it because you're satisfying your own curiosity, and I am the one that is going to do the testing. I did invest a little bit by buying the actual wood because I need the wood. I invested by buying the tools that I will need to drill the holes. I bought a new microphone I'm going to show it to you as well later on. And the most important thing, I'm going to invest my time. So the measuring part is not going to be that time consuming. Now I have close to 60 tweeters. I will have a few more arriving in a couple of days. So the testing itself, it would take, I would imagine, 2 full days, which is not that much. The bigger part of time that it's going to take is the evaluation and the summary of the data. Because imagine you have 60 tweeters, each tweeter will have, I don't know, maybe 5 measurements, and I'll have to go through all of them, rank everything, give points to the tweeters, and summarize and make videos about this. So now we can discuss what is going to be tested, how it's going to be evaluated, and how the results are going to be presented. Coffee. Okay, so the most probably basic measurement that you can do is the frequency response. I will be testing on a baffle. It's not going to be a directly IEC baffle, but it's going to be a baffle that is big enough not to influence the actual measurements. I will do a separate video about the measurements, but I want to give you like a big overview of how everything is going to be now. So it's going to be on a baffle, and I will measure from a 1 meter distance and a near field response. So the near field response is useful because it's going to show us all the little thingies and quingles in the frequency response, and potentially it's going to show us the driver capability of playing very, very high. None of the tweeters that I received are certified high res, but I am 100% sure that there will be at least a few of them that will play way below 20k, up to 30 or 40k. One of them, I think, is the SB Acoustics, that in the spec sheet, I think it goes up to 40k. We do have a few AMTs that should play up to, I don't know, 30, 40k as well. So I will be measuring at 96k. For this, I will be using Helix DSP Pro Mark III, which I have in the back in my car. So I will take it out of the car because I cannot not use a DSP, because I need to play with the crossovers. I need to play with different slopes and different frequencies to limit the distortion. Unfortunately, I cannot do it with REW. It has to be a DSP inline. So I will use the Helix DSP. I will use one of my Alpine amplifiers, the 35 series, which is super, super clean. Again, I'm going to show you the measurements of those as well. That plays up to 100k totally flat, so it's not an issue. So my equipment that reproduces the signal is capable of playing up to 50 kilohertz totally flat. I will be using Behringer ECM Pro microphone. In the beginning, I wanted to use the UMIC 2. However, I did encounter a problem while experimenting that the UMIC, since it's a USB microphone, there is a little bit of clock differences between the input and output devices, and it's not as accurate measuring the impulse for the tweeter for the highest frequencies. It's fine for the subwoofers and mid basses, but it's not as good for the tweeters. So that is why I decided to use a XLR microphone, and I will be using Audiotech Fisher AMI audio measurement interface that is capable of going up to 96k, same as the DSP, and it's gonna go digital optical signal into the DSP. So it's gonna be laptop AMI Helix DSP, Alpine amplifier, and into the tweeter, and measuring with the Behringer microphone. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with the frequency response, and we're going to give, I'm thinking now to evaluate is to make, because it would be impossible to evaluate all 60 tweeters and rank them 1 to 60. It's literally impossible, because it would take me years, and for some of them it would be very difficult because most of them are going to be very similar. So what I'm thinking to do is to have a top 5 and bottom 5 in every parameter that I'm going to measure. So in regards to the frequency response, I'm going to rank top 5 tweeters that have the best frequency response and worst 5 that have the worst frequency response. Now in frequency response, best or worst is going to be mainly linearity, and that is going to be evaluated mainly by eye. So all of these evaluations are going to be kind of subjective, if I want to say. The measurements will be objective, but the evaluation is going to be with a pinch of subjectiveness. So my advice is, whenever I'm going to finish with measuring everything, I will publish the REW file with all the measurements and all the data. I would highly advise you, don't watch my videos, but download those files and look at them yourselves and evaluate everything by yourself, because my this is totally flat might be a little bit different from yours this is totally flat. So frequency response, linearity. Then even if it doesn't matter, I will give points, extra points, like a bonus points for tweeters that have substantial frequency response above 20 kilohertz. That could be potentially kind of labeled as high res. Now, most of the stuff that I'm going to evaluate, I want to say doesn't matter as much. However, for the purpose of ranking to give points, I will be evaluating. So again, this high-res extension above 20K does not really matter because we hear up to like 16, 17K only. So a tweeter that plays up to 30, 40 will not give you, in my opinion, will not give you any benefit. However, due to the fact that the tweeter performs that way, performs much better, in my opinion, it is manufactured, constructed, and designed better than a tweeter that does not. That's why it's going to get extra points. Same will go for distortion. We're going to have a look at all the distortion of all the tweeters. The 5 tweeters with the lowest distortion, going to have 5 top spots. The tweeters with the highest distortion are going to rank kind of bottom 5 at the very bottom. And again, it doesn't matter if one tweeter has 0.01 and the other one 0.012, like you will not be able to tell the difference. However, for this purpose, for the ranking, if a tweeter has a lower number, it will get a higher scoring or higher position in my ranking. Then we're going to have a look at the crossover points. So again, that's why I mean that a tweeter that can play low is not necessarily better compared to the other tweeter, just because it will depend on your specific installation and your specific needs. So if you have a tweeter in a 3-way system where your mid-range can play high, you don't need a tweeter that can play low. However, for this purpose, for this ranking, the tweeters that can be crossed the lowest will have the highest rating from me, and the tweeters that will need the highest crossover will be ranked at the bottom. And again, I'm going to repeat myself, that does not mean that those tweeters are worse. It's just for the purpose of the ranking, because there's no other way how to kind of attach a numerical value of a position to a tweeter when you don't take into account these things. So yeah, it's going to be a bit different and it might be a bit confusing for some people, but I hope you're going to get the gist. So the evaluation of the crossover frequency is going to happen based on distortion only. I will put a high pass on the tweeter and see where the distortion is. And I think we're going to keep it at 1%. So I will keep increasing the high pass on a tweeter until the distortion at the bottom end is going to be at 1%. If it's going to be above 1%, I'm going to still increase the high pass until it reaches the 1%. Because like when I'm thinking about this is the only way how to have this thing objective. You just literally need numbers, some sort of. So 1% distortion at that specific frequency. The slope, we're going to keep it as typical 24 dB Linkwitz-Riley because everybody uses it. And this is going to be your kind of recommendation for optimal crossover for that specific tweeter. Then we're going to have a look at the impulse because I don't know if we're going to see a big difference between impulses because based on the stuff that I already measured, the impulse mainly depends on the moving mass of a driver. So we can kind of think that lower moving mass tweeters, which typically going to be AMTs, should have a shorter impulse compared to heavier dome tweeters, such as like I have the SB29s here, which have quite a heavy dome compared to other tweeters. So again, the impulse is going to be evaluated literally visually. I'm going to look at two impulse responses and see which one looks to me shorter than the other. And again, the 5 shortest impulse responses are going to be ranked at the top. The 5 longest is going to be at the bottom. I will try to do something similar with a waterfall graph. I am not confident that we're going to see a big difference in a waterfall. We will see, but all the data is going to be there. So if I'm going to choose to evaluate it or not, it's going to depend on me. But if you want to do it yourself, you can totally do that because all the data is going to be obtained from a single sweep. Because with one sweep, you have frequency response, impulse, distortion, waterfall, and some other stuff. Phase, like if you want to see. But if the data is not going to show me any differences, it's kind of pointless for me to show it to you as well because it's just a waste of time. So we will see how what's going to be with the waterfall. The other thing that I want to do is intermodulation distortion. I want to play I haven't decided yet because I need to see which tests will show me the biggest differences because there are some tests that are standardized. For example, 18 and 20 kilohertz sine tone. They have a name in REW as well. And for example, let's take that one. So 18 and 20K, I will play that dual tone, 18 and 20K, and capture the RTA. And then we're gonna see at the distortion which REW is gonna show and maybe potentially evaluate visually as well. And basically which tweeter has the highest distortion playing those two tones are gonna go at the bottom, and the tweeters that have the best performance in like intermodulation area are going to be ranked at the very top. I might play with 3 different tones as well. So if you have any suggestions, what tones should I play? Feel free to pinch in the comments. Like with 3 tones, I'm thinking maybe to have something that would be in the band pass of the tweeter that it actually plays, something that we hear, and something that we're sensitive like in. So for example, 2 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, and 8 kilohertz, just as an example. Or like maybe 3, 4, and 5 in the band pass that we typically listen the tweeters on, because we can take the intermodulation at 18 and 20, which will show us how good the tweeter is designed, how good it performs, but we don't hear that high. So is it that useful? I don't know. Maybe it's very useful to evaluate how quality the tweeter is, not necessarily how it impacts what we hear. But we'll see. This is just for me I will need to just play around and see what we can see from those measurements. But intermodulation is going to be one of the things that will be included. Another thing is off-axis response, because a lot of people ask about that. I personally think that it's pointless, because typically we listen to the tweeters in a quality install on axis. We want to have the tweeters on axis. There are some cases where we have to install the tweeter off axis, and the off axis response mainly depends on the size of the actual dome, if it's a dome tweeter, or the size of a diaphragm if it's like an AMT. So the smaller the tweeter in general, the smaller the dome, the better the off-axis response is going to be. I don't think we're going to see massive differences, but I will make those measurements with increments of, I don't know, 15, 30, 45 degrees. something like that. We will see. And again, I'm going to analyze the data. If it's not going to show big differences, if there's not going to be any tweeters that are really stand out, I'm not going to analyze it because again, it's just pointless. But the data will be there so you can look at it yourself. One thing that I'm not planning to do is the impedance graph to check the FS, because to me, the FS of a tweeter or the impedance graph is not going to show us literally anything. If there's going to be something massive in the impedance graph, it will show up in the near field frequency response. So it's kind of doubling of the measurement. I don't want to spend extra day just to take 60 impedance graphs and it's not going to show me anything. And the FS, it doesn't really matter because we will have a look at the distortion and at the crossover frequencies. And it not always correlates with the FS. You can have a tweeter that has an FS of, I don't know, 600-700 hertz, but it will still need to be crossed at 2 kilohertz because of the distortion. Some of them will have a much higher FS and will be able to be crossed lower. So I don't know, I don't want to do that because it's kind of pointless. The distortion and the lowest crossover is going to show us what we really need to know. So I'm not going to do any impedance sweeps. And one more thing that I'm planning to do is to take the frequency response of a tweeter in a car. Now, this is going to be probably the least objective measurement because I'm planning to put the tweeter in the passenger side somewhere between the sill and the pillar, like where my tweeters are currently, because I want to have like a broad idea. Is there a big difference? Not necessarily which tweeter measures the best in that location in my car, but just in general, is there a big, massive difference between different tweeters if we put them in the same location and we take the same measurement? So for that purpose, I'm going to stick the tweeter in there. I'm not sure how exactly, but it's not going to be like perfectly mounted in a pillar. I'm not going to do a mount specific for each individual tweeters. I'm just going to plop it in there. Same like my SB29s, they're there just on a swivel stand with no baffle or anything. It's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to stick the tweeter there. I'm going to aim it roughly on axis. I'm not going to use a laser to aim all of them in exactly the same spot. So that's what I mean. It's not going to be like 100% accurate because to measure 60 tweeters, swap them out is going to be a full day of work. So I'm going to put it in there, aim it roughly on axis, and I'm going to be using pink noise and moving microphone method. I'm going to do close to 100 averages for each tweeter, and we're just going to compare. So that one is not necessarily going to be a ranking, but just for us to have a broad idea how they measure and how the frequency response looks like, and if there's going to be any tweeters that really stand out. So I think this is going to give you an idea of what is being measured and how it's going to be measured. In regards to the content, like what I'm going to be doing on YouTube. Last time what I did with the mid-ranges, I gave you updates on the progress on the baffle and the measurements, and I made a one long video to summarize the whole thing. In this case, I'm going to do it differently because I want the people to be able to find the specific video for a specific thing that they are interested in. So I will make a separate video for a different aspect that's being tested. So for example, a separate video for the frequency response, the ranking at the end. A separate video for the distortion, ranking at the end. Separate video for the impulse, ranking at the end, so on and so on. So that you would have a whole playlist and like, okay, I need to find the lowest distortion tweeter because this is the most important parameter for me. You take that specific video about the distortion and you watch it. So it's going to be, I don't know, 10-15 minutes video, which is going to be easier to find rather than skimming a 2-hour long video. I think it makes sense. And then at the very end of everything, I'm going to do kind of a video where all the data is going to be collected into one place like a spreadsheet, same like I did with a mid-range shootout, where we're going to have the top 5 performers, bottom 5 performers, and we're going to see if there is a tweeter that's been in the top 5 in the most areas and kind of the worst as well. And again, that video is not going to be to find the best tweeter. It's just the tweeter that is performing better than others in those specific areas, because everything is relative. There's many more tweeters to test. Like literally there's hundreds of tweeters that you can buy, and what I'm testing is just even if it's 60 drivers, it's a lot of drivers, it's still a very small pool of all available tweeters online. In regards to the selection of the tweeters, I'm very happy because, not necessarily because of the specific tweeters that I have in the test pool, but because of the variety of the tweeters. We have literally everything from piezo tweeters to dome, hard dome, soft dome. We have AMTs, quite a few AMTs. I have a literally comparison between a Dayton AMT that is the genuine Dayton and the fake that you can buy from AliExpress. They look very, very similar, not the same, but very similar, and it's going to be very interesting to see what is the difference between a fake and an original tweeter. As well, it's going to be very interesting to see if we can spot any differences between different materials to be used, because there is metal dome tweeters, there are ceramic tweeters, there's literally all the selection, and the price ranges as well. Some of the tweeters cost £20 in the UK, like I think one of the Edge SPL tweeters. I think some of the recoil tweeters are very cheap. The home brands, like I do have Vifa, we have SB Acoustics, which are quite cheap. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have some very expensive tweeters, like one of the ScanSpeaks, I think is like £200 plus per tweeter. We do have the Mundorf tweeters. So one note about those are the PS Sound version. They were not sent by Peter, they were sent by one of my followers. So PS Sound has nothing to do with it, but this is the tweeters that he sells. As well, we have some premium versions of tweeters from brands that you could consider budget, like Recoil. There is a premium version of their tweeter. We have Vibe, for the UK brand, premium version of it. The most requested tweeters, I think, were the Stereo Integrity and Stevens Audio. I think those two were kind of asked in every post, are these going to be included? Are these going to be included? So we do have those. I did buy a few tweeters by myself. So I bought a SB Acoustics SB, I think 21, which is a very small version, because I want to check it out because it has a very, very good off-axis response. I think it's like plus minus 5 dB up to like 20 kilos or something stupid like that. And it goes like after 20K as well. I did bought a Temu tweeter, which is Temu AMT for £30. It looks very, very nice. How it performs, I don't know. We're going to see if it's worth the money. But like for £30 AMT, why not? We're going to check it out. As well, Brandon from Custom Speaker Pods, you know the guy, hello Podheads. He sent me quite a lot of different SPL brands like DS18, Audio Ace, I think. I don't know even the brands, but like SPL brands tweeters that, like, when you hold them in hand, they look very premium. How good they perform, I don't know. We're gonna see. So I'm very excited to check literally every tweeter. So yeah, this is a first video in the series, in the playlist. Now what's gonna happen, I will have to take probably a couple of weeks off YouTube without making any videos. So after this video, you're not gonna hear from me from quite a long time, because I will be measuring. There is Halloween coming, Halloween holiday. I'm stuck with my little one, so I cannot do anything. Then we're gonna go for a trip to a different country for a weekend. So again, I cannot do anything. I do have a few tuning sessions booked in. Again, I cannot do anything about this. And then I literally need time to sit and measure a couple of days. So apologies for this. You're not going to hear from me for quite a while. However, when I will come back swinging with all the data and all the videos for this Tweeter Shootout. So stay tuned. Wish me luck. I will keep you updated on my Facebook, on Shorts. I'm going to share some pictures and some reels. But for this one, that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.